Good morning, my friends. Welcome to Video Sunday School Week 3. Today we are going to be learning another promise of God. And this promise is that He will have ears to hear. And we're going to talk about what that means and why it's so incredible that God has ears that hear us. Okay? God had kept His promise to Abraham and had made him into the great nation that He told him he would become. He had kept His promise to Moses, and He had led the Israelites out of Egypt through the wilderness, providing food and water for them every day for 40 years. He had kept every promise that He had made through Joshua to help the Israelites to take over the land of Canaan and establish themselves in the promised land. Despite all of those promises that God had kept and the faithfulness that He had displayed to the people, the Israelites still weren't sure about God. Was He really the one true God? Or was Baal, the god that their Canaanite neighbors worshipped, the one true God? Who should they worship? Who should they obey? They weren't sure yet, despite everything that God had done for them. But one man in Israel was absolutely certain that Yahweh God was the one true God, and his name was Elijah. Elijah was a prophet, and he was determined to show his fellow Israelites that God was the one true God. So in 1 Kings chapter 18, we read about an encounter or a meeting that Elijah had with the people of Israel and with 450 men who worked as prophets for Baal, the idol god. And Elijah met them, and they had an experience together that proved which of these two gods was the one true God. So 1 Kings is in your Old Testament, and we are in chapter 18 this week. And it says, Elijah came near to all the people, and he said, "How long will you go limping between two different opinions? If Yahweh is God, follow Him. But if Baal, then follow him." And the people did not answer him a word. So Elijah suggested a test. The 450 prophets of Baal would build an altar out of wood, and they would prepare to sacrifice a bull on their altar. Elijah would also build an altar, and he would prepare a bull to sacrifice on his altar. But neither one of them would light the sacrifice on fire. Instead, Elijah said in 1 Kings 18:24, "You call upon the name of your God, and I will call upon the name of Yahweh. And the God who answers by fire, He is God." That was the test, okay? So, the prophets of Baal called out to their God all morning long, but no answer came. What do you do when you are trying to speak to someone and they aren't listening to you? Maybe you say what you're saying more loudly, or maybe you do something else to get the attention of the person that you're trying to talk to, right? That's exactly what these prophets did. The Bible says that they cried aloud, and then they did something really strange to try to get Baal's attention. The Bible says they cut themselves with swords and lances until they were bleeding. That's what they felt like they needed to do in order to get their God to pay attention to them. Can you imagine? That would be terrible, wouldn't it? But no one answered. No one paid attention. Why did no one answer the prayers of these men who were praying to Baal? Because he wasn't a real God, right? Praying to Baal was useless. He was an idol, not the one true God. The prophets of Baal didn't understand what we know from Psalm 115, which says, "Their idols are silver and gold, the work of human hands." People had made them. They have mouths, but do not speak. They have eyes, but do not see. They have ears, but do not hear. They have noses, but do not smell. Now it was Elijah's turn. His turn to show the people who the one true God was. And do you know what he did? Before he did anything else, he made the test even harder. He got water and he soaked all of the wood of his altar. Have your parents ever tried to make a campfire or a bonfire using wet wood? It's very hard to do. If you have wet wood, it might just not be a good day for a bonfire. You have to wait for it to dry out again, right? Or get some dry wood. But Elijah knew that this would not stop God. So he soaked all of the wood, and he didn't have to cry aloud. He didn't have to cut himself. He didn't have to do anything dramatic to get God to listen to him. All he did was pray. And this is what he said. O Yahweh, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all of these things at your word. Answer me, O Yahweh, answer me, that this people may know that you, O Yahweh, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back. And then, this is in 1 Kings 18, fire from Yahweh fell and consumed the burnt offering and the wood and the stones and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. And when the people saw it, they fell on their faces. That means they bowed down to worship. And they said, Yahweh, he is God. God is not like the false idols that can't see or hear. God is the one true God. He is real and living. He sees everything, everyone. He hears all things, even the tiniest whisper. And best of all, Psalm 34:15 tells us, the eyes of Yahweh are toward the righteous, his ears toward their cry. He's not turned away from us. If we are his people, his eyes are on us. He is paying attention. God is always watching, always listening to his people. He hears every time they pray, and he answers every single prayer. If you are a child of God, God hears every one of your prayers, and he answers every one of them, even when it doesn't seem like it. Sometimes his answer is yes, like when Hannah prayed and he answered her prayer and gave her a son, Samuel. Sometimes his answer is no, because he loves us enough to not give us things that he knows will be bad for us. Sometimes his answer is wait, because maybe he knows that we aren't ready for that thing. Okay? And then sometimes the answer is already on the way and we don't realize it. Or maybe he does answer our prayer in a way that we weren't expecting, and it takes us a while to realize that he's answered it, but he does answer it. God's promise to his people is that he will hear and answer every prayer they pray. Psalm 86 tells us, for you, O Lord, are good and forgiving, abounding in steadfast love. There's that term we learned about last week. Steadfast love to all who call upon you. Give ear, O Yahweh, to my prayer. Listen to my plea for grace. In the day of my trouble, I call upon you, for you answer me. There is none like you among the gods, O Lord, nor are there any works like yours. We can be confident that even when we are stuck at home alone, that God is hearing our prayers. Sometime this week, maybe you and your family can take some time to read 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 17 through 40. And you can talk about, what does it mean to go limping between two opinions? What does that mean? And what are some ways that we, in our day and age, might be tempted to limp between two opinions? What does it mean to stand firm in our faith in God in our lives? We are not heading up against 450 prophets of Baal, right? But we have to fight the battle of our own sinful desires. We have to fight selfishness. We have to fight all kinds of things. What is it that you are battling against? And how do you stand firm in your faith in God today, tomorrow, each day? I'm excited to see you guys again sometime soon. But in the meantime, I'm really thankful that we can do these videos. And I hope that they're a blessing to you. Have a good Sunday, church.